What is up, you all? Today we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets, and more specifically, if they should even try and rebuild. So, subscribe to the channel. I post daily sports videos on the NBA, NFL, college football, and college basketball. Subscribe, like the video, comment down below your thoughts on this, matter. Yeah, let's hop right into it. So, the Houston Rockets traded James Harden. I think we all know that. Um, After the trade, they've actually done, fairly well. I mean, it's not like they've just boom, straight up like sucked after the trade. No, they're actually winning a couple of games here and there. They've actually looked pretty good doing it too. So, this brings up the issue of should the Houston Rockets even bother rebuilding after trading away James Harden? Let's talk about it. So, in trading away James Harden, they got Victor Oladipo. That's basically the main, piece, along with, tons of picks, right? So this gives them a rotation of John Wall at point guard, Victor Oladipo at shooting guard. I believe they are starting Jayshawn Tate at small forward, power forward PJ Tucker, center Christian Wood. That's a pretty good lineup right there, honestly. Playoff contending for sure. The Houston Rockets, they're a confusing team at the very least. All right, their defense has received an incredible boost since James Harden left, which is understandable, honestly. But they've just been winning a lot more games now. I think they've won like 6 in a row at this point, I'm pretty sure. So that brings up the question of should they rebuild? And I'm personally saying no. Now, hear me out on this. All right. So, in the past, I've made a video somewhat similar to this on the Oklahoma City Thunder, where I said they should not have traded Chris Paul and they should have ran it back. Now, most of the same logic applies here, right? If you have a good thing going, don't throw it away, right? Now, granted, PJ Tucker, Victor Oladipo, I believe Eric Gordon too. I believe all of those guys are free agents, which does create a complicated issue, right? Because you don't want those guys to leave in the event of, when they hit free agency. But you do have a, borderline contender here, and it is worth looking into extensions for all of those guys, right? Now that James Harden is gone, you have, more basketball to go around, right? I mean, it's really not that difficult a concept, I guess. You got John Wall for 3 more years, 2 or 3, so you might as well attempt to be competitive as long as you have him, quite honestly. Makes sense to me, at least. So that's one reason. But the second reason is even bigger, and it involves one thing: picks. Now, granted, they gave up a couple picks. I believe they gave up a couple of picks to get Russell Westbrook. So they still, don't exactly have a stockpile of them. But they resupplied more or less most of their picks in trading for, or, trading away James Harden. Now, why is that important? Well, let's look at the past, couple of situations where teams have not rebuilded. For example, the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat never really rebuilded after LeBron left. They had an off season or two, but they've always been either, borderline playoffs or in the playoffs, right? Picked up two, a superstar and a future superstar, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero with the 13th pick in the draft. I mean, look, if you draft smart and have a good development program, you're set, all right? It's really not that too terribly difficult, in my opinion, at least. So, what I'm trying to say here is if they draft well, they should be fine, right? But they have picks, okay? They have a good core right now, similar to how Miami was at the end of 2018-2019 season. Yeah. They had a good young core. They were looking promising, but then they were able to add Jimmy Butler, right? A superstar. Now, Jimmy Butler wanted to go to Miami. He said, hey, I want to go to Miami. And they made it happen, even though they didn't have cap space. I believe a similar situation could happen to the Houston Rockets, honestly. Now, granted, Houston is not as an attractive free agent destination as Miami is. But ultimately, sometimes it doesn't matter in the event of signing trades and just trades straight up, right? Say Giannis walked out and demanded a trade right now. I don't know why he would, but let's say he does. There are going to be several teams that want to go out and get him, right? But unless he has a no trade clause, which I'm fairly sure he does not, he can just go to, the team that gives him the best offer. Like, let's say that the Oklahoma City Thunder wanted to make a run at him. They have the most picks. They have the most, ammunition for any trade that they wanted to make, right? So if they wanted to go out and get a guy, they can go out and get that guy. It's not always, what team they want to go to. It's whoever has the best package, especially in situations where said player is under contract for 4 or more years. Right? It makes it a lot easier if you were to say give up John Wall, who is healthy and playing well, for a guy like Giannis in exchange for several picks. It's going to be a lot easier to do that than to give up Giannis for, a young guy and a pick or two, right? What I'm trying to say here is the team that has the best package is going to win. And Houston can get close to putting up the best package. Now, let's talk about the fun part. Teams that have failed to rebuild. So, it's a lot, it's complicated, all right? Teams such as the Detroit Pistons, they've been in rebuild mode for a while now, and they really don't have anything to show for it. Um, Teams like, say, Cleveland look like that, and then they fixed it this season, right? So obviously it's a very, tricky situation to gauge if you actually have something when you're rebuilding and if you don't. But if you have something, you need to try and hold on to it, right? Let's look at the Brooklyn Nets, for example. Perfect example, honestly. They had a good young core. They were competitive in the playoffs. And they were able to sign Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and trade for James Harden. Right? The same thing could happen to Houston. I don't know what the odds are of it happening, but it could happen, right? They got a good core. They're developing the guys. They're going to probably be competitive in the playoffs, honestly. I mean, what's not to love about that situation? So, we talked about all of that. Yeah, that's honestly about it. Um, Now, on the other hand, obviously, they could just blow it all up, trade Oladipo, trade PJ Tucker, trade Eric Gordon, get profit for those guys, and start the rebuild the right way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel like they have a good thing going here, and I feel like they need to keep going with it. So, yeah, that's it from me. Y'all have an amazing day. See y'all around. Love y'all. Yeah.